So we are live, and Lisa doesn't know what session it is because she doesn't bother to look at the schedule. So Lily's here. Hi, Lily. Please tell us about
Hello,
what
good
session.
morning.
I'll tell us about yourself later, but first tell her what session are we sitting in.
We're sitting in on ego and mediation.
My God, no. We are sitting now in
energy,
life, energy,
sorry.
and mediation.
Yes, energy. So
I'm finding this so funny.
So just to put it out there right from the beginning, do you remember I was hesitant to do this? And you kind of teased me about it. So I have learning differences, and they were undiagnosed in school. So I have some real inner narrative that's negative around being around educated people, because I can have that narrative that says I'm stupid. So I do, one of my differences is auditory, so I get words confused. So that's why ego and energy start with E. So perfect. My mind just latches to one. So this will happen as we go through the talk.
And the good part is, Lily, that you're in a safe space. We are all the same. Yeah. You're not with the educated person for sure. Lisa, of course, is educated. That's a different thing. So we don't have any problem. We're all uneducated. That's the way I look at it. Illiterate for sure. Yeah.
That's my disclaimer. And one is also a memory, so I might forget a word that I'm trying to come up with, but we'll work through it all. So I did want to say up front too, I'm not a mediator, I told you that before, but I have been trained in mediation, and I find it fascinating and really the way to solve personal and global problems. And I'm also not a scientist, but I'm fascinated with energy. And I'm not going to talk about energy as physics, kinesthetic, heat, light. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about more emotional energy that deals with relationships that we've all experienced.
Yeah. So I think first of it, the wrong words, you're using the wrong words here, Lily. One, I told you, first of all, I'm not a mediator. That's not an option. You might not be a mediator as in those professional people who say we are mediators. That is not relevant here in my little bubble. And the other things, training, that session was supposed to happen, did not happen because someone skipped it. But the same thing, is it really training? Do you really need to be trained? You have the skill in you, and that part, that's all that's important. Everything else is not important. So please, so that's why, I mean, Lisa doesn't know this, but I had to do a lot of convincing with Lily that no, there is no requirement, no qualifications required to be here, because she said, I'm not qualified. So we've got that out of the way now. So please, Lisa, you just want to introduce yourself, because this is another, because Lily has to also maybe introduce herself a little more. So Lisa,
okay. Well, I'm going to be just really brief. I've been in mediation forever, since '96, and mostly from the community perspective, but I just love the relationship, and I love this idea that you have about energy. I think this is a really great topic. And so thank you for bringing this topic. And I am going to shut off my video, and I maybe will try to see if my daughter will come and sit with me, because I think she would be the right person to be here.
Absolutely. Brilliant. So we'll see her. And Lily, now you have to tell us about yourself, and then we'll get into the life, energy, and mediation.
Okay, so I mentioned that I had these learning differences in school, and right there, so in a school environment, there's a certain energy, and that became negative for me because I struggled. But I think we all feel this energy. We feel this energy when we enter a room, when we meet someone, when two people are interacting. It could be strangers on the street, in the grocery store. So this energy to me is everywhere. It's happening. We're just not aware of it. So really, that's what I think is key, is becoming aware of it. And that leads to so many things. So the way that I see this concept of energy relating to mediation is that when you think about it, a mediator meets with two people who are in some sort of conflict or dispute, and those two people bring an energy into that room, and the mediator brings an energy, and the mediator's job is, as far as I understand, is to listen reflectively, gain some understanding and awareness when they reflect that back to the individual parties, they gain some awareness, and slowly over time, the energy changes. That's exactly what a mediator does. So when I talk about energy shifting, everyone is doing it all the time, and mediators, especially in a mediation, that's what they're doing. They're shifting the energy. And I sometimes refer to it as closed and open. So when the two parties enter the room, they're very closed mentally and emotionally to the other side. But as the conversation continues and awareness is gained through understanding, then those two people begin to be aware of something other than their own point of view. That's what the mediator brings to the table. That understanding and awareness is what shifts the energy. So I think we all do this. And interestingly, one of my editors, all my books are about feelings and thoughts and basically shifting our energy. One of my editors recently told me, she's read all my books and she likes them. She said, I don't think anyone can change how they feel. And that shocked me because we're all changing how we feel all the time through awareness, through becoming aware of what we are thinking, what we are feeling, what we are believing, and then what's true beyond that. So I will say, as far as my history, I had numerous experiences that I would say drew me to mediation, where I would see conflicts. One was when I was 8 years old and my grandmother died and I was named after her. And I received one of her engagement rings and there was another ring. And the two aunts fought about it. And there was actually someone slapped the other one and there was blood. And this was a very traumatic experience at 8. And my sister actually was 14 and she started crying. I remember sitting there thinking, everyone just needs to calm down and be kind. So this was one of my first experiences of conflict or dispute and wanting to have everyone be nice to each other. So there was that. And then I just noticed growing up through my teen years that I was real popular in junior high and the popular kids were mean to the other kids. And I thought that was cool. So that sort of brought compassion for me. I wanted to be compassionate toward the people that didn't fit in. So I think this has been a long journey for me. And again, for me, whenever we're talking about mediation, we're talking about energy and shifting the energy. And we do that through awareness.
Perfect, actually. But let's get Semu in. Semu is here, but he hasn't put his video on. Semu, you want to meet us, speak to us, introduce yourself to us, or to me? You know, Lily, first to me.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Nice
Hi,
to meet
Semu.
you. I know Lily quite well, yes.
Yes.
It's early over here. I just sorry for being a little bit late.
No, no.
My name's Semu Torres, and I'm an elementary teacher by trade. My position right now is not in the classroom. It's more of a administrative type coordinator position. And maybe I'm a good example of mediation just in normal use throughout our daily lives, which can always be helpful. I feel like, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, Lily. I've learned a lot from Lily. We've had discussions about these types of topics quite often. It's something that we're both interested in. But in my experience, I mean, that's maybe the thing that I can offer is just my own experiences in my job, in my personal life, and how mediation has helped me. Because I mean, you all know that, but it's really a part of everybody's lives, daily lives. At least it should be. Maybe it's not, but it really should be a part of people's daily lives and awareness, whether it's family members that was mentioned, whether it's something at work. And at work, I'm very often the go-to between the administration and the teachers, or the parents and the teachers, or the students and the teachers. So I'm hoping to learn, as much as I can here today, and maybe contribute. And one other thing that I was thinking about that I found interesting, just for mediation in general, it's Lily tipped on it. It's how it should be a part of our lives, even if you're not mediating between two people. If you're aware of mediation and the strategies and the importance, you can be a mediator yourself and another person if you have some sort of conflict, and bringing that awareness, feelings and their feelings, and trying to come to sort of yeah. But anyways, I'm Semu, and thank you for having me here.
Same. First of all, thank you for coming in. The other thing is your signal is a little low, so your voice is cracking up. So if there's some way of maybe changing your location or something, please just have a look, because I have a question for you, which I will only ask you when your signal is better. so I think the important thing that we ask.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think important thing that comes out from this is, and whatever Lily's told you, one is, of course, mediation in general should be part of everything that happens within people. The important thing is that not everyone doesn't have the mediator mindset. So we have to, of course, identify those with the mediator mindset, which is what you will hear me saying a lot of times. That's why I'm starting off with that, because if that's what is the most important thing. So no qualifications, nothing required, just that mediator mindset required. So Lily, we are moving into what is life energy. Anything more that you want to tell us?
So I did want to make it very real to life. So like an experience is the first day I met Semu, which I was hired to be the secretary at the school he works at. I had already worked at that school previously for 3 years, and they asked me to come back, but it had been a couple years in between. And on the first day, it was a few days before school, so it was very overwhelming with all the paperwork for all the old students and all the new students and all the textbooks. And my desk was piled with stuff. And I just had what I call a mini breakdown, because I get very overwhelmed. And Semu, I hardly knew him. I had just met him hours before. He came into the room and he said, "How's it going?" I almost started to cry, and I just looked at him, because I'm a very honest person. I said, "I can't do this. It's too much. I'll try to help you get started for the school year, but it's just too much." And his energy, instead of saying something like, "Well, we need you, and you can do this, and I've got stuff to do, and just get started," he was so compassionate, and he was right there with me and said, "Oh, what do you need? Where should you start? What can I do?" He said, "What's most important?" I said, "The textbooks." He goes, "Oh, just focus on the textbooks. Don't think about everything else." And then he turned to me before he left and he said, "If you need to take a break, go outside and go for a walk. Go breathe, do whatever you need to do. And if you need anything, I'm in the other office." So that's the energy that I'm talking about. That's a shift. So when he brought that energy into the room, that shifted my energy. And then I was able to stop shutting down and do my job. Another example recently is I was babysitting my ex-husband's 1.5-year-old son, who slammed his finger in a folding closet door, and he was screaming. Now he's hurt, of course, but I could respond in 2 ways. I could have, which hopefully most human beings don't do, looked at him and simply let him cry, or even turned away. Of course, I picked him up, I kissed him, I blew on his finger, I patted his back. This shifts the energy. Yes, he's still in pain, but he feels compassion for his pain, and he feels connection. So in the end, and I think Henry Yampolsky, if I'm saying his last name correctly, talks about this in his book and in his talk with you, it's about connection. It's about connection and compassion, and those 2 things change the energy. So if we get to this life energy I'm talking about, that gets into areas that are very mystical. So I'm just going to say, I believe we're all born with a life force. It's in us till we die. After that, I don't really have answers. But we need to be aware that there's actually a life force. It's kind of like the Star Wars thing. And I don't know if that was very popular in India, Vikram, but it was very popular here. And that there's a force that we can actually connect with. So I believe that. And then I'm going to go out on a limb here and just talk about one more personal experience, which is over the last 15 years, 9 separate times in my life, I experienced this energy. Usually it's out in nature. The first time was up in Big Sur in California, hiking. And it's where I'm just going about my business, and all of a sudden I become aware that there's something way beyond me, and it's vast, it's huge, it's everywhere. I don't really have words for it, but when I'm consciously calming myself and feel it, it's fluid, it's flowing, it's vast. And ultimately what I realized is that it's love. So this sounds very sort of new agey, but I did experience it many times. And I continue to go back to this on a daily basis. I continue to go back to this energy is what I want to connect with, which has to do with connection and compassion. And I think that mediators absolutely are wanting to create connection. And they do that through themselves with their compassion, with the people they're mediating.
That's the important thing, Lily, because I'm telling you, like you said, I mean, first sentence, and I keep repeating this, and I'm going to tell a lot of people about this, about the fact how Lily was not willing to come in, and she spoke about qualification, because this aspect that you will bringing, the connecting people and that energy that you bring in, where is the qualification for that? Who's going to qualify you that you have this positive energy that you can connect people? Who is going to say that Lily can actually feel the energy in a room? So that's why I'm saying that whole qualification aspect and training, which I don't like to use, that training and all has gone into a certain direction. And that is why the last symposium on heart, soul, spirituality and mediation, these are the conversations we have to start having, because there is lots more that happens when people get together. And when all those things, we can, some of the things, you said science, we don't, I mean, so what does science say? Science might not have words for it. We don't have to wait for science to give a word to something that you can experience. I was telling someone, look, gravitation has been there for whenever, I don't know how many billions of years. Just because someone says, Newton says there is something called gravity, that's not the point when gravity came in. So let them take their time to come out with words for whatever they are. We still experience it. We know it exists. So what we have to do here is talk about all the connections and all the energy that you feel you have brought in, how you've connected people, and how you've experienced it. Lisa is going to talk about hers. Samu is going to talk about his, because it's not about at all even practicing as mediators. It's something that these are people, relationships, communication. How does it happen beyond words? Sometimes it just happens. So Samu, do you want to tell us about these experiences of yours?
Yeah, can you hear me better now?
Yeah, but only thing is, Samu, I want a question that I was wanting to ask you. What space are you in? It looks like a very interesting space that you're in.
I'm in an RV.
Exactly. That's what I thought. I mean, this looks really interesting.
I'm isolating right now. I'm just getting over COVID actually. So I'm separating from the family, and luckily my wife's parents have an RV that they're parking at our house. So I'm out here. This is as good as the connection is going to get. Sometimes it's okay. Sometimes it wavers. So I hope that it's okay.
Perfect. It's perfect. But no symptoms. I mean, nothing beyond that. All full recoveries happened, or?
I'm still a little bit congested, but yeah, fever's gone. Fever stopped yesterday, and I'm feeling pretty good. Went for a short walk this morning. Yeah, feeling not too bad.
Good. Yeah. So please tell us. I mean, this is what we're talking about. So it's not at all into any technical aspect of mediation or anything. We're talking about how life energy as part of, let's see, just the communication process with people. How does that come in, and what you've experienced on that? So please. So Samu has frozen here. No problem. We get him later. Lisa, do you want to throw some light on this?
Well, there were two things that so I think there's two sort of things going on. And so I invited my daughter and son-in-law to come and sit here, and they're coming in a few minutes. They said, give us 10 minutes. My daughter does not like to be on video, but I've convinced her, because my son-in-law and my daughter are autistic. So I thought, let me add them to the conversation. They know what I do, and maybe that will give a different perspective. In terms of life force, I experienced it this weekend. We were at a wedding this weekend, and it was, all around. And my husband's children are somewhat, estranged a little bit from him. They came because of this, the very thing you're talking about. They came last night to our home for dinner. all of them, all four of them, and his grandchild. And it was an amazing thing, and nothing was done. Nothing made it happen other than just letting that life force be there. So it's exactly what you were talking about.
But I think the next challenge is Lily is how to get her husband onto the screen. He's not willing to do.
You
I've
saw
been
him in
trying.
the last session, he passed by.
He passed by. That's not good enough. So that's another challenge. So I think look, Lily, the whole discussion basically is all around the fact of connecting people. So how does that life force, life energy work? Connecting souls. Is there a soul concept there?
No,
What
it's
is
if there's love in the room, if you really love people, you really feel this compassion for people, they feel it. It's that, it's that openness and that willingness to be accepting of everyone that opens up doors. And that's that thing that I think she's talking about, because it's something, it's much more than that. When we put it into words, it minimizes it because it's much broader, but it is that it's having that, and it's not, it's not like I have it or somebody else has it. We all have it, but it helps us connect. And when that's in the room, it really opens up the doors. But it's letting go of that, oh, well, you do this and I do that. It's not about that. It's about knowing that we're all different and honoring that difference, and then reveling in it and celebrating it and feeling good about it, and letting that be there. And that will open up huge doors, and it brings people together rather than pulls them apart. And that's, that's what we love when it happens. I think that when we're practicing mediation and we see that happen in the room, that makes us so satisfied. It's not like anything was done that helps me. It's that I saw that transformation in other people, and that felt good. And that, that people left, more satisfied and more connected than before. And so there's so much of that life thing. And I think it's very important when we're talking about differences, because that struggle with, people don't understand what your needs are always. And if somebody can understand or listen to what your needs are, that again opens up doors, because everyone's needs are not the same. We're all different, and we all have different needs, and we have different perspectives of looking at things. And I think, what you said, when as soon as you knew that your needs were taken care of, that helped you, and that opened that possibilities for you instead of shutting it down.
But I think, but what we do is focus will be on the life energy. Of course, the needs part of it is a discussion that we normally keep having, but on the life energy part of it, first of all, does the person who is a mediator, does that person have to connect to something within themselves to be able to experience that life energy? Or is it that the person is a special person who actually can feel that energy? So that's one thing. But Semu was saying something and he got cut off. Semu, please, if you think the signal is not good, you can shut off your video. Semu, are you there?
It's frozen again.
Yeah, I think he should. I shut his video. Maybe it will help.
I have some things I'd like to throw in.
Yes, Lily, please.
So, Lisa, that was so exciting to hear everything you said. And for me, it really resonated. There were numerous words you said, and open was one of them. And I think of that a lot. And then Vikram, you just mentioned, does a person's capacity to experience this life energy, is this because they're special? Is it that they're open to it? What is it? I think it absolutely has to do with being open. And this is what mediators do. They come to a mediation, they're open, and basically their job is ultimately to see if they can pry a wedge in the door and open the other person's view of the situation. And really, there's so many facets to this. So there's the inner openness, which really does have to do with connecting with yourself. And then when you do that, there's automatically this openness to other people. And then, Lisa, you also mentioned, and this is the part of disputes that mediators are trying to resolve, there's the different perspectives. And so when I'm talking about life energy, I'm completely talking about awareness and openness to what exists beyond what Lily thinks and feels in this moment, which is just a mess half the time. But if I calm that down and realize there's all this, there's a whole world outside of me happening on multiple levels of energy. And if I tune into that, then this is where the energy shifts. This is where the openness happens. This is where all kinds of wonderful things are created because of that openness and connection to that life energy. And I do believe, again, that this is exactly what a mediator does. They're like magicians. They are able to take this closed situation and through compassion and listening, open it. And then the two people all of a sudden see things differently because they're not just in their own little heads anymore. William Ury, who wrote the books, The Power of a Positive No, Getting to Yes, numerous books, he talks about going to the balcony. He's a mediator, has traveled all over the world. And I love his balcony analogy because basically he says you go up above the situation and you get a little emotional distance from it and you're able to see more than you saw before. That's what I believe a mediator does. And we can all do this in our own lives. This is what I say on a daily basis I'm doing, to shift from my small world to the bigger world and the energy that I have the capacity to connect.
Okay, Lily, that'll be, look, those are two different aspects of it. One is to be able to move and take the bird's eye view. That's another part of it. Here we're focusing on that energy part of it and that connection, because I should have told you to actually watch Louis Ore's session of Heart, Soul, Spirituality and Mediation, that symposium. We actually spoke about this, but let me get, okay, I'll just give you a brief. Semo, I'll give you a brief, then I'll just come to you. Basically what I said was, let's look at mediators as routers. So there is this whole Wi-Fi signal everywhere. It's there. I mean, it's not something that everyone can pick up. So that the router is, of course, sending that signal out and then connecting to the individual being the device. So certain devices are on zero battery. So how do you, in that whole process, charge their batteries enough for them to pick up the signal? Some hardware doesn't have that Wi-Fi capability. So how do we bring those people in? So that was just an example that I was giving, but he actually took it seriously. So he made a full chart. And then when we had that last day of that symposium, he actually gave that little presentation. So that little video or that clip he's put up, I'll maybe send you the link, or you can just, I'll find it somewhere on this post. So that's how we were looking at the energy and how the energy comes in. I mean, interesting the concept we were discussing. So somewhere out of that, we have to maybe expand that discussion. So Semo, you were frozen at that time, so we didn't get you in. If at any point of time you think the signal is not good, we can always cut your video, if that helps.
Okay. Yeah, it's really going in and out.
Yeah. So what I'll do is, we can cut the video. We can cut the video, and then if that's okay with you, if that helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, next time we'll tell you to put your picture there so we can keep seeing you.
Yeah.
We'll just think you're frozen.
Sorry, I'm really making do right now. The Wi-Fi connection is a great metaphor for right now. I think the energy part is really important, and it is something that's hard to put into words. I really do like the metaphor about connectivity. I think that's a really big part of the energy. I mean, there's energy all around us everywhere, and it's how we're connected with it. And I think, as you know, I guess I would call myself an amateur mediator, but to be a mediator and to have any sort of effect on a conflict, you do need to be, one, you need to be very present. Two, you need to be connected to your own energy and the other's energy. it's not going to work. And you need to do it in a very, not only respectful, but curious manner to bring forth the honesty that's needed in any type of situation. And I agree, that's not something that's just everybody has. I think some of it definitely can be learned, but I think other people, just from possibly their upbringing, might have a little bit of an advantage where they might learn some of these, because there's definitely mediator skills and there's things that can be learned, but there does need to be that energy element where people have a deeper connection to themselves, to others in general. And I think Lily tipped off part of it, even the nature aspect, and being connected and feeling like you are part of something bigger. And a lot of people don't have words for it, but that's something I've spoke about before with Lily's. Like when you go to watch a sunset, it never gets old. You have that feeling of connectedness to something larger. Same thing when you hike to the top of a mountain and you look out over the mountains, you have that same feeling. You could do it every day and it's still, you get that feeling of this connected to a larger energy. And I think I'm getting off topic a little bit, but it's all part of it. And if you can bring that feeling of connectedness and connected to that energy to other people, they see it. It's not something that you can fake.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
can learn techniques that help in mediation, but if you don't have that honest, connected energy, it's not going to be that effective. Like even people who aren't connected so much with that energy, they're still going to pick up on it. Like it just is, just as a human, people are aware of that, whether it's subconscious or not. That's something that is, I would say, necessary to be there before a mediator can be effective. And
but Samu, what we need to do is we have a guest with us. We have to connect with that new guest. So, Lisa, are you going to introduce us to your?
This is my son-in-law, Misha Brewer. He's Von Niedick. Actually, he's got like 200 names.
Which one do you prefer? Everyone calls you names, is it? Those are not your names.
Okay, my name is Misha. That's my calling name. Well, what can I say? I'm from the Netherlands. I am. Can I say yes? This is my mother-in-law. I'm married to her daughter, a beautiful, lovely daughter. Well, what else can I say?
Getting brownie points.
For the rest, if you want to know something about me, just go ahead and ask.
No, let me just introduce you.
He's not a mediator, but I think
again, Lisa, we never say that. They're all if they have the mediator
yes,
mindset,
he
they're
has
mediators.
natural skills.
That's it. I'm telling you, here the clear thing is, do you have the mediator mindset or not? Everything else, whatever people talk about qualifications and everything, we don't talk about it in this space. Here, only people with a mediator mindset. Oh no, other people can come in. Yes, not a problem. But the main thing is that if you have it, you have it. And this
My
is right
daughter
now.
says he has it.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
he's very good at helping people get along.
Yeah. So now what we are discussing here is that the aspect of life energy and mediation. But before that, let me introduce you to Lily. Lily, you want to say hi?
Hi, I'm so glad you joined us. So yes, we're just talking about how all of us really are mediators in one form or another. And I see that Lisa's daughter's joined us, so we can talk with her.
Hi, Lily. Hi, Lisa's daughter. Is that what we're going to call you?
Hi, my name is Arpana. For short, you can call me Arpi.
That's a new short form. Here we call Arpana here. We don't call but the only thing is that, look, I don't know, Lily doesn't know, because there's this show called Evolution of a Mediator that I do. So Lisa was on it. Arpana was supposed to come, but she did not land up. You came in for some time, I think. You came in for some time.
Yeah,
I think you came in.
I was there for a brief period.
The problem, I tell you, Lily, what happens is that those shows, that particular episode, I think, went on for 4 hours without a break. So everyone doesn't have that patience to stick around for that long. So that's why I think she had to move out. So of course, if you watch that on the YouTube channel, you get to know about Lisa, her life history and everything. So please watch it. But Arpana, what you're talking about? Semu's here. Semu has actually shut his video off because he had a signal problem. Semu, you want to say hi to everyone?
Yes. Well, hold on. I'll put my video right back on.
Well, he has a little bit of a signal issue there. He's living out of an RV. He's been chucked out of his house. And we're trying to find a way of mediating the process to get him back into the house. But let's see. That's a future thing.
I'm trying to get a picture up there at least. I only have old pictures, but I'll put an old picture of myself. Nice to meet you all. My name's Semu. I'm a teacher and a daily mediator at my job. So nice to meet you.
So basically now, of course, Arpana, I mean, but if you want to tell us about life energy, forget mediation. Mediation will come in later. We're talking about life energy. What is life energy? Just the fact of people connecting at a level which is different from anything that you can put words to. It's not verbal, it's not gestures, it's something else. So anything on that? What is your feeling on that?
My feeling on that. I think I'm someone who needs solid definition. So that one's a little bit difficult for me because we're talking about something really abstract. But I think what you mean is that feeling that we're all connected in some way, and how that relates in terms of communicating with one another and just your communication and dialogue. But
I know, look, yeah, I mean, look, I'm telling you, we also don't have words for it. So we're also we're grappling with the way to how do we talk about it. So whatever comes to your mind. I mean, just the fact that just the fact that some people are together, there is a certain energy in the room. We could talk about energy in the room. But what is that all about? How does it work? I mean, we don't know. We don't have answers. We're not Lily wanted a scientist to be part of it. We said we don't want science. They don't have words for it. We'll put words to it. But what is it? What is that whole experience all about? What have you felt?
So I think it's just the energy that we feel from one another. And I think that the reason why it's hard to describe is because we have to acknowledge that part of us is animal. I mean, we are animals, and we tend to read each other with things that defy definition. Myself particularly, I'm really sensitive to like the energy that's inside of a room, or I can't, I'm not so good with reading people's face expressions and gestures. That's where my communication is really poor. But I definitely can emotionally sense when people are off or when there's a certain kind of energy in the room. And I think that's what you're talking about when you talk about life energy. So what it is, again, I also can't define it, but I definitely also feel that it's there, and how we navigate through that and how we use it to our advantage is something that's a good thing to talk about in terms of mediation.
Exactly, because like you said, that maybe you're not good at reading certain aspects, but this connection with people, and if you can connect to that aspect, I think that's a major aspect of just that communication. I mean, you don't even need words, and you've communicated in a certain way, or you've connected. So I think that's why. Okay, but now, what do you want me to call your husband? Because he has lots of names, I've been told. So what do you want me to call him?
He goes by Misha.
Okay, so Misha's okay with you. So Misha, what do you think? What is your thing on this?
Oh, I'm pretty much feel like a deer caught in the headlights here. Wow. I don't have a definition for that, to be honest. I think the only way that I can describe it or compare it with is like in a relationship, loving each other. Try to explain that.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're trying to get at is that what is that connection? Is there a connection with the heart? Is there a connection with the soul? What is that whole connection all about? Just look, we're just throwing thoughts out there. I mean, there will not be any definitive answers which are of course there, because everyone will have their own experiences. Just trying to bring that out only for the reason that that aspect of mediation is not discussed. Everyone talks about, if you have what Lisa talks about, so calls training, is there are certain aspects which people are told about mediation. But let's go out of that box, because that's not the way it's going to happen. And that's, I feel, one aspect of certain people are left out of it.
Yeah.
Because they're very good at that connection, and then they're left out because that is never they're not told that, oh, you're the best mediators in the world because you don't need any language. You've just been able to connect the whole thing, and you've been able to connect people, and that's the whole idea. So that's why I think that's why this discussion was important. So Arpana, you were saying something.
Yeah, so I recently found out that I'm probably on the spectrum as far as autism, or if you want to call it neurodiversity.
Interesting session. Huh? That was a very interesting session. I don't know whether you saw the whole thing. We had a session on neurodiversity and mediation.
Yeah.
You see
so
that?
I didn't, I haven't
Okay,
seen it yet, but I'm really interested in viewing that. But so since I've been reading about this a lot, I have learned that a lot of people on the spectrum read people that in the same way that I do. And it's also something that we can't really define. And someone put it in a way that I thought was a really great way to describe it, which is that people can say, when they're speaking words, they can say anything. You know, they can tell you that the sky is green, right? So words can say anything, gestures can say anything, people can mimic face expressions, but that life energy that you're talking about, to some of us, it's more reliable than words are, or gestures or things like that. And so if you can define it as a plane on which we're all connected, that seems more real to some of us than words or even gestures.
Absolutely. I think that's the important part. And I think that's why this discussion, because maybe that is what is really required. There is a mediation, like we talk about the US, in that whole box of mediation has been there for 40-45 years is what they talk about. But how does that translate into people's lives? Are they going to mediators first? There's something missing there? Why is that not happening? Because over time, all these years, word of mouth and everything should have created an atmosphere when mediators should be very important in the society in general. But here I find that they can't even practice as full-time mediators. So there is some problem somewhere, and these important elements of people. And I keep talking about that whole traditional method of how disputes were resolved, and they had these people in the community, and they were identified by the community. What did they find in those people? What did they have? They were able to read that life energy. They could brought in some connection, whatever that was. So I think that's why this discussion is happening, and we'll elaborate on that, because I was just telling them about that symposium that I had. There was someone from Peru, Luis Ore, and we were talking about the mediator being a router. So there is that whole signal which is obviously there, but the router catches it for you, picks it up, and then distributes it. And what is that internet? Internet is a connection of computers. That's all it is. So it's connecting you to that whole connection of computers. So is that what it's all about? It was just just an exploration through some example. So it was just that kind of thing, connecting devices and the devices themselves, what state they are in. So bringing from that, we're trying to, similarly, if you have some other example, please give us some other example. So that's what the discussion is about. But Semu is going to tell us something.
Yes. I really like that. Again, I really like the metaphor of the router, and it just made me realize something related to energy. I honestly feel that everybody has a mix of a lot of different energies, and those that are good mediators might be more in tune with not just like positive energy, but like connecting energy. And I think that's one of the keys, is they're also good at bringing out the good energy in other people, and that's what's needed for the connection. So there might be some conflict, but if a person is a good mediator, they're not just going to be connecting like a Wi-Fi router. In a sense, they are, but they're going to be connecting the more positive parts of the energy than just everything, because you can easily, as you know, create more conflict and it can escalate. You're also connecting energy, but it's not just the connecting of energy. It's the connecting of a certain type of energy. And being a good mediator is someone who can go in with that, oh, I don't know, yeah, you can't really put words on it. Maybe it's not even like the self-awareness, but you just know they have that energy. It's calming. They're connecting people, and they're able to bring them together in more of a positive way.
Yeah. So I think, Zemu, what we'll do is, if this is just a, I mean, just a metaphor that I've used, let's develop this, because what you just brought out, that it's not just any energy, but the positive energy is what a mediator is channelizing through the process. So we have to discuss that. Maybe Lisa has something to say on this. Lisa, do you anything on this? What he brought out, Zemu brought out?
I mean, I think it's a good metaphor. I kind of feel like the energy is a little bit more expansive than like an internet connection, because it's all surrounding. It's like all over. I don't know if that makes sense. You know, for me, it's what goes through everything. And so that's the way I think of it. Lily, I think you've been thinking of something.
What, you passing on the baton very nicely. I'm in a stuck
Poor
position.
job.
Please help
Thank you
me,
for
Lily.
that.
Come to my
Sorry.
rescue. Okay, Lily, please come to her rescue. Well, although Lily, let me just say that to her. The point is that there are certain signals around us. There is that, like I keep giving the example of Wi-Fi only because we understand it. That whole Wi-Fi signal is in your room everywhere. It's not. It doesn't. But it doesn't. How do you connect to it? You need something to connect to it. First of all, the fact that you can get a cable into your house, but it's not going to help, because the signal is going to not come into your house. First of all, you need a router for that. But beyond that, the signal can be everywhere, but can you connect to that signal? So that's something. That's why I'm saying we are all, we are part of this whole world where a lot of these energies are all around us, but to channelize it, to connect to it, that is what do you think?
If you go back to, like, you know, when I was listening to a guru talk, for instance, or we won't go into who or whatever, but it's more like, you know, in life you have this sort of veil that's separating you from knowing what that is, and you only get little signals, which would be like more like the computer. But in order to understand it all, you have to lift that veil. You have to, that's that part of being open. It's clearing your, not your actual vision, but your vision of being able to feel it.
Yeah. I think, but the only thing is, you got us interested. Maybe later you can tell us about the guru and what all the guru told you. Maybe later. But you got us interested now. You can't just throw these things and then move away from it. We have to understand what the guru said. But Lily, please, yeah. No, we'll get to the guru first. Lily wants to come in. Yeah, Lily.
Well, so many interesting and enlightening things, and I agree with everything everyone's saying. I feel like it absolutely has to do with people feel disconnected from that energy. And when we feel disconnected, we're closed. We sort of enter, we actually connect with negative energy, in my own personal experience. And that's just a spiral downwards. So I liked what Lisa said about the veil. I absolutely can relate to that. I write about that. And it's sort of going from one reality to another. It's a shift. It begins with our thoughts. And again, this is exactly what a mediator does. When you think of two people that come into a mediation, they're both disconnected. And I think disconnection ultimately comes from pain. There's an inner pain. And what a mediator does is they, on some level, again, they're like magicians, they create a space where that person feels heard, and that alleviates the pain. Then there's an openness, and now instead of being connected with this negative energy, they begin to be connected through awareness of the greater energy that's surrounding them. This is a whole thing that occurs, and it occurs in our personal lives. So it occurs in our personal lives, in our relationships. But the bottom line is, I think it's awareness. So if we're not aware of these different energies and what we're connecting with, we're stuck. But when we're able to become aware of our thoughts and even the thoughts of others, this is what opens, it spreads the veil, and we are able to go into a broader reality, really. In my mind, it's about realities. Am I in the little reality in here, which is so small and a lot of times false? It's not even true. These thoughts aren't even based in what's true. Or am I going to shut that down and quiet that and then see, oh, this is the real world out here where life is really happening, and connect with that positive energy, which again, for me, ultimately means love. And that starts with compassion for my own suffering, and then that extends to compassion for other people's suffering.
So also what you're saying from that is there's a healing process also. It's a healing process also. That's what we talk about. So that's important.
Absolutely.
But the only thing is, yeah, but so the thing is that either you need a mediator or you need Lisa's guru, her spiritual guru, to do all that for you. Whichever comes first, that's the point. But Misha hasn't come. And Misha, now that you've heard all this from here, what do you pick up from here? What I mean, in the sense, don't have to pick up from here. Any thoughts that you have, you just look. It's an open discussion. We know no one knows any answers to this, so it's open. Whatever.
Arpana had a thought.
Yeah, you had a thought first.
Well, what I was going to say kind of ties everything that all of you were saying together, which to me, information, whether you're talking about information or energy, there's a transmitting and there's also a receiving. So if you think about a real life context, like let's say that Misha and I, coming from non-mediator perspectives, we're in this awful dispute, right? Both of us would have this sort of negative energy, right? Then the mediator comes in. So if the mediator is receiving the energy, but not transmitting that peaceful, accepting, calm energy, then things aren't probably going to go well. However, if the mediator comes in and the mediator is peaceful and has a calm receiving energy, then the disruptive energy from both of us kind of gets absorbed by the mediator, and then the calmness that they're reflecting has an ability to be received also by us, and therefore calm us down. And I think that kind of ties into what you're all describing.
And I'll tell you why this discussion is important is because actually, I keep saying that all the time, mediators are special. And like what you just said, being able to absorb all that and then send out this whole positive signal, it's not easy. I mean, a lot of people don't appreciate what happens in a mediation is because it just happens. They don't even know what the mediator does. And that's why this life energy is what I'm talking about, is because everyone can't connect that aspect of it and bring that energy in. And maybe, of course, healing is if healing happens, imagine such beautiful things happen, but they're not appreciated, they're not valued. So, but let me tell you, we also have to discuss this whole concept of the online world. Does that make any difference in terms of gauging the energy, or does that have to happen in a physical space? Why it's important is because I only work online. So, and I think that energy exists. And I know when in a Zoom session, someone comes in, I can feel that energy. And Lisa knows that. She know I actually talk about those people. So
I agree with that's there, but I wanted to say, there used to be a TV show that we actually used for skill building. I don't want to say training.
Okay, whenever she says skill development, she's talking about training. I'm just telling Semu. Semu doesn't know.
Wait, listen. This TV show was about this woman who helped people who were dead crossover. And in the beginning of the show, they would come and they would be really grotesque and really looking terrible, and then as she talked to them, as she help them solve some of the problems that they had while they were living, their aspect changed. And at the end, they were like, oh yeah, they were looking really good. And to me, that is a good metaphor for what also mediators do. So in that way, and that's why we used it in the training, because all she did was listen to them and help them work through whatever they needed to work through. Maybe they didn't say something to someone, or maybe there was a misunderstanding, or maybe it was something else. And they had died in all different ways, but these things weren't worked through. So in order for them to be able to be whole, they needed someone to listen to them. And I think the power of listening, it's a very powerful thing. Listening without judgment is very powerful because that's so much a part of it.
No, Lisa, that is a different direction. That's okay. That's perfectly all right. That yes, that has to happen. We move into a different direction there. We're bringing it back to only the energy part of it. But that part of it, but like I'm asking about the online part. Lily, do you think that the online space in any way affects your connection with that energy?
Yeah, I agree with you that energy is everywhere. And like right now, if somebody was to enter the Zoom room and they were very confrontational and argumentative, it would change the energy. And I do want to say there's different ways to do that, because when you spoke with Ken Cloak, that was amazing. At the end of the whole talk, he said, let's open it up to questions, and you can completely disagree with everything I said, because he's so secure in himself. He doesn't need to be right, so he's not closed. There's a big correlation to being right and closed and being open and letting people have their own views. So if somebody came into the room and they don't have Ken Cloak's attitude, that brings a whole different energy into that interaction and relationship. So I think it happens in person, and yes, absolutely it can happen through a meeting like this, because you still got that same energy that you're allowing to float through you into the screen and into that room.
Well, I'm saying, Lily, I'm going a step beyond that. I'm saying just the presence of the person. The person hasn't opened their mouth. So there is no concept of any argument or confrontation. It's the presence, and you feel something on the presence part of it. Because when I talk about energy, that means that energy exists, and anyone coming in will in some way either affect that energy, bring in something. So that's the point. Maybe Semu has something to bring in on that. Semu?
Yeah, I think, I'll be honest, I think it is a little bit, it is a little bit more limited online. You're not there. There's a lot of things that you pick up on when you're in person. But definitely, I mean, it's a smaller group. With a smaller group, it's easier to pick up on those things. You know, when you're in a large Zoom meeting with 25 people and one person pops in, it doesn't have an effect on the room as much, just because you're dealing with percentages. But it's definitely something that's there. I mean, it's another platform, it's another way of connecting, but there's a lot of similarities to any sort of group setting.
So you think numbers make a difference? I mean, say in a space so you have some parents coming into a room and there are 40 of them there, it's going to be a different thing. But when someone walks into your room on a one-to-one basis, it's a different kind of thing. That's what you're saying, something there?
I think that numbers always make a difference with energy. Yeah. Just because it's the amount. So if you have, you know, 1,000 people and they're all very, very peaceful, and somebody comes in, you know, whether it's like a Woodstock music festival and there's somebody that comes in negative, they're going to be drowned out by people's energy, and they're going to start picking up on the positive energy, or, you know, it's going to be minimized. Like it's all, there's a transaction there, and it's always there. And so the numbers definitely make a difference. Yeah.
But you should not have used the word Woodstock, because I tell you why, because my last symposium had 97 speakers from 45 countries, and someone called it the Woodstock of mediation. So that's why it just brings that back. Every time you say Woodstock, it brings me to the symposium. Now we've forgotten the Woodstock. Now we've gone to the symposium. But I think Misha has something to add. Yes, Misha, please. You have something to say. Just say it, please. Yes.
Actually, I don't.
I'm telling you, there's something inside which we need to hear. There is something that you are feeling, but you're not telling us.
Well, what I'm feeling is I'm feeling totally overwhelmed here. This is, for my brain, too much to process, to be honest. So I'm just sitting on my listening chair.
Okay, so that's what's important, because that feeling, this feeling is also something that is important for us also to understand. Maybe we're going to too much of an abstract thing, because it is an abstract thing. I mean, that we can't help. But if you want to structure it, please structure it for us. If you want to put it into some points that we need to discuss, please tell us. We'll take up those points to discuss. Because look, with me, there is never a structure. So which is a
Yeah.
problem? Which is a problem maybe, but that's the way it is. So if there is some structure you want to put it in, please.
I'd like to say that I can completely feel Misha's feelings because, as you know, Semu, I get overwhelmed very easily. It's part of my learning differences. And when it happens, sort of everything turns gray and I can no longer process. I couldn't even say a person's name. I'm shutting down. So I love the idea of just being on the listening chair and observing, because that gives you some distance. That's great. There was a thought that I also wanted to say when Semu was talking, which is that this energy, Vikram, it's not even just people. You mentioned it's everywhere. So I've had people come into my home that are roommates at different times, and they'll say, when I'm not there, that the house has an energy about it. It's very calming. I've also gone on vacation and had people take care of my plants or whatever. And they said they actually like to come and sit in my living room and just sit there and soak up the energy. And they've used the word energy. So there's an energy that is existing that isn't even personal or individualized. It's there. And again, we can connect with it if we're open. And again, I'm going to say that people that aren't connected with it, it's because they're in some sort of pain. And so there's they're shut off. But once you can alleviate the pain through listening and reflecting, then they begin to be able to open up to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because the thing is that when you talk about dogs connecting to a certain energy, you hear about there's a retirement home kind of place where there's a cat, and that cat will go into a certain room, and that person passes away after a few days, which is not a good thing for the person because they know now there's something happening, but there is something that they're picking up. So animals are picking up something that maybe we are not. So how does that work? How do we get our antenna all tuned in? So I think that those are things which are signals are there. But why I was telling Misha to come in with a structured approach is because that listening chair is good for you, but it's not good for us. All those important things that you have to tell us, what about those things? Where we're not going to listen to those. We won't be on the listening chair then. We want to be on the listening chair. So that's why I'm saying, if you, whatever you heard, some kind of points that you want us to discuss or something, please.
Not really, to be honest.
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
like I kind of put them on the spot, bringing, it, and they came, and I appreciate that so much. So, I'm going to let Misha go and
Why,
take
Misha?
a break.
Please stay with us. What is this?
No,
He
he needs a
wants to
break.
go. He wants to go.
He
Okay,
needs a break. He needs
okay,
a break.
perfect,
He may
perfect.
come
Yeah.
back.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
he's
sure.
actually been having some back issues, and I think the sitting on the chair is not working for him.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
being
why-
on the spectrum also doesn't help.
No, but I think
Yeah,
that
it's
that
fine.
Which I
session,
can relate to also.
yeah, please, but Misha, you have to watch that session on neurodiversity and mediation. Why it's important is for us to be sensitive to a lot of things. Martha was there. Martha she's autistic. So but she got diagnosed quite late. But she was telling us about a lot of things, that how she looks at, of course, communication with people and all that. And one thing that she told me about was the structured part of it. She says she watched some of my shows before she came in for that session, and she said, look, it's nice if you tell us what you're going to be talking about, because I want to be in some way prepared. So for her session, she was prepared by watching my shows to know what to expect from me.
Yeah.
So I know that's a problem. So I normally
Yes.
I do not even do any introductions. I'm okay. I haven't done it every time, but now I'm trying to tell people first, what is this session? It's part of a conference that I've organized, which I've called the World Mediators Conference. The idea is to put out thoughts in relation to Mediation Vision 2026 for the evolution of mediators and mediation, and a lot of topics which are otherwise maybe not discussed. Let's have a brief conversation on it and then elaborate it as we go on through the year. We'll have a next one next year. So that's the whole idea behind the conference. So this is one aspect. Life energy and mediation doesn't get discussed. I haven't seen it being discussed. So similarly, heart, soul, spirituality, and mediation, I don't see it discussed. So I had a symposium last month, which there were about, I think 31 speakers in that. So we got an idea from people from all over the world in relation to of course, what spirituality is. That was one aspect of it. In this case also, that life energy aspect and spirituality, are they connected? Then how does the soul come into the picture? Is there a connection of soul connection there somewhere? So those are the kind of, you're just putting out these thoughts, and we are no scientists, we are no experts on anything. I just have this YouTube channel and I can sit and talk about anything. So that's what it's all about. If that gives you.
I think, Misha will, he'll get up to speed and like that. Like you said, he needs a little bit more familiarity with what's being discussed so that he doesn't feel like he's on the spot. So it's fine.
Because I might be pushing you, but the idea is that there are people who can add a lot of value to the mediation world, but that discussion with them doesn't happen because there is a box of mediation which went around, and everyone just talks inside that box. So that is why I want to bring in inputs from everywhere, because I feel that we can take it to a different level altogether, which it hasn't gone. But like Lily is sitting here. Lily was very hesitant to be part of the conference. She says, I'm not qualified as a mediator. I said, you don't need any qualification. Then she came in and now she's hooked. I don't know whether she's given up the drugs she takes, but now she's hooked on mediation. It's actually, I'm telling you, ask her. What is that true or not, Lily? Now you're hooked.
Yes. Well, I was always interested in mediation, but I don't think of myself as an expert. And so, yeah, I was very hesitant to be part of this conference.
Okay, so let Misha go. I think Misha needs to take a break. So Misha, please, we'll see you later sometime. Yep.
Okay.
Please,
It was
please
very
join.
nice to hear your voices, to hear your opinions.
And please
Really
join the
enjoyed it.
conversation with us. Whenever
Yeah.
else, please watch some of my shows and please
Oh, I
bring in,
will.
yeah,
Yeah.
please bring in your views because they're very important. Yep. Thanks a lot, Misha.
Okay. Thank you too.
Let me show.
Bye.
Right. So I think, Semu, this is going to be an abstract conversation for sure. But anything else in terms of personal experience in relation to energy that you had? Is there something that you want to talk about?
One thing that I've been thinking about that was really interesting, and it just came up again with Misha about the autism. It's something that that I have picked up on is as a teacher, and especially at my school right now, we do get a lot of students that have difficulty in the traditional public school setting. Our school is a Montessori-based learning center, and it's a small school. There's a school culture of kindness, acceptance, individuality, and so we do get a good amount of students coming that are interested in it. And the parents are looking for something different because the students are on the spectrum. Often it's students that are not having a lot of difficulty. They would be classified as mildly on the spectrum, but it was really interesting because that came up in just the communication style and the picking up of energy. There's not a lot of eye contact with some of them, and that's a generalization because, as most of us know, or all of us know here, that being on the spectrum is really, it's not one thing. There's all these different characteristics, and for somebody to be considered that, you have to have a certain, and it's not an exact science at all, but you have to have a certain number of symptoms, and they have to be severe enough where they say, okay, you're on the spectrum, but they can be totally different. I mean, they're as different as can be, but there are some more common characteristics, and one of those, like I said, is the eye contact. But in some ways they don't need that because it's a different way of communicating, and maybe it is picking up on people's energy, but they'll know there's certain people that they can relate to well, and it's not about exactly what's being said. It's not about the eye contact or picking up on facial expressions. It's really just kind of picking up on that person and who they are. And it's interesting because some of the other things that would be more obvious to somebody who's not on the spectrum, I'm putting quotes in the air right now. There's certain social cues and things that, as we know, other people would pick up and like, oh, that's clear. I'm supposed to do this when somebody says that or somebody does that. And for those people, it's not, because it's a different way of communicating, and it might be more on the energy side of it. So I just wanted to share that that came up, and that's been my experience also, that there's that aspect of people's differences, where some people are more in tune to different types of communication, whether it is more of somebody's energy or not.
No, that's important. I think that's a very important aspect, because this is what I'm saying, that if people tell us who otherwise will not be talking about it, bring them into the conversation to tell us how they maybe gauge people, how they connect to people. So Arpana, do you want to tell us something about this aspect that Seamus picked up?
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, because I don't know how to define what it is, but I can give an example. Let's just say I see someone carrying handfuls of groceries and also trying to open a door. So it might be obvious to everyone else that this person needs help with opening the door or carrying their groceries. That might be something that I completely miss, because sometimes I get so frustrated because it's like, it's almost like the obvious just completely eludes me. But what I will pick up on is the person's emotional distress. And so that's what I'll respond to is, are you okay? Is something wrong? And then they might say, yeah, I'd really like some help with these groceries. So, I mean, that's just an example, but I think you hit the nail on the head. We don't really know what it is we're sensing or why, but it's definitely something outside of verbal communication and physical cues. The only way we can describe it is an energy, I think. But on that level, it also makes me think of babies. When you're caring for a baby, if your baby is crying and stressed, if the mother is stressed because the baby's crying, then the baby's going to cry more. But if the mother has a calming energy, the baby's going to pick up on that. And there's something there that I think that is innate within all of us, that we have, from nature, from evolution. And I think it ties into that.
Yeah, because I think this mother-child relationship and that connection, I was telling Lisa about the one personal experience I've had, and I actually experienced it. There is a connection there. So that's why, I mean, that, of course, that discussion has to happen, and people then will talk about their experiences. I was talking about my experience to Jonathan Lux. He's a mediator in the UK. He then was telling us about something that he was told in terms of a connection between a person who's on different parts of the world, and how that connection came in, someone feeling something. So there is something, of course, on screen. First is physical space, on screen space. Then what about those spaces when you're, way away from each other, that connection happening? So there's lots and lots that needs to be explored there. And every individual, I think, has had some experience somewhere. But what about, okay, so let's just forget people. You people went for a trek. What was that experience? You connected to something. You liked that trek that you went for today. Lisa, where did you go for that trek that you went? You were trekking somewhere recently?
Oh, we were walking, yes, at Glen Helen in Yellow Springs.
So in terms of that connection, not with people, but with nature, there is some connection that must have happened. You must have felt good about that connection. So isn't that some life energy?
Yeah, it always is, right? That is true. I think you also take in energy from the trees. They talk to you. I'm saying talk to you. They don't really.
Yeah, you
talk.
should not say that. Yeah,
But,
you should not say that. Sometimes might be a problem. We'll have to find out more.
No, but you can feel it. You can feel it. There's that surrounding. You can feel something, that's there, and that's why people find forests so calming, actually, because it's in that forest. It's that life force is all around you, and that energy is all around you, and it's very positive. Although you could feel it. Like I remember in Bali, I could feel it in the mountains, and then I could feel in the oceans that it wasn't as, didn't feel as safe. And I thought, wow, now I understand why Balinese think that all the evil spirits come from the ocean, because it's so much more calm in the mountains. And you have to appease the bad spirits, at the ocean. So they're always taking all of their, they take food and things down to appease the bad spirits, so they're in balance. And
No, but
you
yeah.
could feel that energy, so you could feel why they believe that way when you're there. Otherwise you think, oh, what's wrong with them? But then when you're there and you can feel it, you're like, oh, I see now why they believe that.
But
And
Lily,
it's-
no, Lily will tell us. The Lily, have you gone into a forest, and is there a time when you haven't felt good about it? Has there been some situation? So we're trying to
Well,
understand.
I just wanted to say to Lisa that I've felt exactly what she's talking about. The numerous times I've been in nature where I've felt this unbelievable energy that's so vast. It is like the trees are alive. And then my mind will say, well, of course the trees are alive, but it feels like you could talk to them. I mean, it's almost like this one time up in Big Sur, I wanted to call out hello just to whatever felt like it was there. It sounds crazy, but it's like it's so real, this energy that's so powerful. So I completely understand what Lisa's saying. It sort of sounds like we are crazy, but I don't think we are. I think we've tuned into what is real life, that is not this, it's real life, and it's everywhere. We have to quiet our minds to become more conscious of it.
I
But,
actually have an example that it was from Arpana. Arpana did it because she's really tuned in. So we were in Alaska on this boat, and we were looking over the edge of the boat, hoping that we would see some whales. And Arpana said, the whales were there. They came to the surface, and I was taking pictures. I said, I have to keep taking pictures. And Arpana said, save your camera, because the whale is going to jump up and breach. And she knew it was going to happen. And it happened just like she said it was. But I didn't feel that. She knew it.
Well, I actually have a different take on this.
Okay, good.
I do. And I think this ties into like autism, honestly, because I think I am someone, since I'm always trying to plan things and see like 12 steps ahead. I was seeing all these people just snapping away with their cameras. And I had a moment of panic because I was like, you're all gonna miss, like something's great is gonna happen and you're all gonna miss it because you're not gonna have any film because you're taking the pictures. And so I think that my autistic fear came into play there and made it seem like I knew this, but I didn't actually know it. It was more that I'm planning, I'm seeing the result of a result, and I'm having a fear that, oh my gosh, you're all gonna waste all your film, and then something amazing is gonna happen, and you're all gonna miss it. So I think that comes into play with like being prepared. But I did want to say something about energy and things like that, because one of the things that you brought up is, this life energy that we're talking about with trees and feeling energy and things like that. How does it come into play over the internet or like in a Zoom meeting? And I was trying to see if I could get a feel of all of you, like when I'm, if I could catch any energy from you. And honestly, I can't. But what I can point out is that I purposefully didn't wear my glasses so I would see blurry faces, because that's less intimidating to me than if I could see everyone's eyes. And it allows me to look at the computer without looking away, because it's less stimulating than having to feel like I'm directly looking into people's eyes. So the eye contact thing. But I was going to say that because of that, I can see that I'm more calm. So sometimes what's also coming into play is our own comfort level and not so much of reading other people's. Like if I was wearing my glasses, I would probably be considerably less comfortable than I am without having that added stimulation.
So basically you're saying, Arpana, in terms of picking up energy did not happen. So that's not
Right.
happening. Or do you think there is some processing which is happening or has happened, which the result is not out with us right now? Could that be the possibility?
Yeah, I think if there was like a blatant, it would have to be more blatant. Like if I were wearing my glasses and then, noticing something out of place. And I think this is also a characteristic of being on the spectrum, is there's a tendency to notice when like something is out of place, right? So somebody standing out for whatever reason. I might not be able to identify why they're standing out, but I'm going to pick up on the fact that they're standing out because, there's 4 boxes of blue and 1 box of red in my mind. So, but in terms of feeling that life energy, I don't really
Because
pick
I
up on
think,
that as easily over the internet.
no, because look, one thing is that you are calm. Once you're saying you're calm within, because certain aspects you remove from the picture, because those could in some way agitate you. So you remove that. Perfect. But what if the whole situation right now is calm? Because the people who are here are people who are there only because they are there. They've been invited. It's not that anyone can walk in. So maybe there's a certain energy which is flowing here, which is a calm energy. That's why it's not out of place for you. Maybe that. I don't know. I'm just asking you. I have no answers. Because for me, I'm telling you, if actually is something which is important. I don't have everyone coming into the Zoom session only because I'm very sure that I have to have this very nice, calm energy flowing in the Zoom room. And I'm telling you, it affects me. I can actually feel the energy when certain people walk in. So I don't know whether it could be the reason.
It could be. I would be interested in seeing an experiment, to be honest with you.
I don't want to call that. I don't want to call that
Yeah.
negative. I know I've identified those negative energy, but I don't get.
Where everyone is prepared, and then throw someone in there who's not prepared, or who might be, maybe someone can agitate them beforehand. But it would be.
Look, a simple thing, Arpana, you're asking for some people with the negative energy to be brought in, and that's not going to happen. I have a lot of filters. I have a lot of filters before that happens. So, I don't know. But Sebo, do you feel a certain energy here or in general in the online world, which you have felt?
Yeah, definitely. It's a small group. It's a selected group. And I think that's a good point. Sometimes if we're looking for something that stands out, whether it's like somebody's energy, then it's often so you're noticing differences. And so nothing might stand out because there's not something that's drastically different. And I have some of those same tendencies. I definitely know that Lily does as well, visually, but not just visually. There's certain people that are kind of more in tune to things being not aligned, like I said, visually or in other ways, and they just kind of like pop out really dramatically. And I think personalities and energy per se can be the same way as well. And I do have to admit, using the term energy it's a little bit hard because there's not a real definition of it. We say energy, life force, but I know people will get it mixed up because for a lot of people, their definition of energy is the scientific definition of, light or heat energy. And that's not really what we're talking about. And that's one thing that makes it difficult to talk about. It's really more a mixture of, and I can't define it either, so I shouldn't even try, but it's a mixture of.
I'm just putting a video off because your signal's gone down. Oh.
Okay.
Sam, I think you'll have to put your video off.
Is that better?
Yeah. If you just say something, because I can't stop your video. Okay. I can't stop your video. I think you'll have to do it. Because
no, my connection.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be better, I think. Yeah. You're saying something?
Yeah, my connection just got slower again.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Oh man.
Cut the video off. It's okay. Same way you can continue. We can hear you now.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Please. We won't put your video on.
Okay.
We've
Okay.
already
It was
seen
still.
you. Your energy
It
is
was still.
coming through to us without seeing you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, my connection just goes in and out, as you know. All I was saying is energy is a part of it. It's hard for me just to say like the energy, because I know it is misconstrued in many ways. But there's definitely something there, and we've touched upon it in many different aspects, you know, from a larger feeling that comes from nature, to our own perceptions of it, and how, you know, changing our own perceptions of it or thoughts in setting that up, changes our own feelings, but then also between two people, and as being a mediator, picking up on those things. It's something that it's out there. It's hard to define. Maybe we'll get there. Maybe these kind of conversations will help in defining it a little bit. On the other hand, you know, maybe it doesn't need to be defined, but it is a good conversation, because it's something that's important, especially in the realm of mediation. I mean, if you are looking for a mediator, you know, you're going to want to find somebody who you know, will be good at it, and that's something that's part of it, being able to pick up on whatever it is, and bring people to the table, and bring people to the table with, you know, for lack of a better word, a positive, open, constructive energy. And yeah.
Yeah, but I think why I'm having this discussion is because, one, like I said, the mediator themselves, do they have to connect to something within to be able to catch that energy? So working on that is one part of it. Or people with the mediator mindset are also connected to that part of it. That's a discussion we will obviously have. But the important part is that whole process beyond that negotiation, which people talk about it as facilitated negotiation. Do we need to bring out a much larger aspect of the whole process? Because let's not put it down to such a small aspect of it. The larger aspect of what Lily is talking about, healing, that aspect of it, or that whatever else, I don't know, Lily, what else do you want to bring in? But there is, let's not, I mean, in a way, I mean, don't like to use the word, but demeaning the process by putting it down to only certain basics, because those are words that people have for it. I think that is something that I want to bring that conversation out of. So what do you think, Lily?
Well, yes, it is hard to put words on it, but I do think it's way bigger than just a mediation process. I mean, this is a process I do every day. Throughout the day, I stop and become aware and observe what's going on inside me and around me. And so I think the more that an individual practices this awareness and connects with that energy that's everywhere, the more that they will have lives that are filled with these things that we all want, which is peace and connection and love. So I think it all starts within, and then it carries without. So when I change my relationship with myself, it changes my relationship with everybody else. I've seen this over and over again. And I think, again, that's what a mediator does. A mediator brings an energy to the table, and this energy flows through the process, and then those individual energies are changed.
So Lily, I think the important thing, like you said that time, I'm not qualified to be a mediator. I'm saying the qualification is to catch that energy around you. So that is the qualification we need to put out there. All that training that Lisa does is going to be around catching that energy. She's going to make people routers now. That's what you have to do, Lisa. Make people routers. So it's going to be a process where they can catch the energy. How do you do that, Lisa? How do we do that? Because you're a training person.
I put a lot of emphasis with people, and Arpana wants to go and check on Misha and say goodbye first and have breakfast. She hasn't had breakfast yet.
Oh,
So
thank you, Arpana, for joining us. And you have to do this more often. Your perspective, what you bring in, is really important. What you just
Thank you
brought
so
in is a very special thing that you brought in, that the aspect of you picking up more than what other people might be picking up. And that's really what the whole point is, to be able to pick up those, I don't know, on an emotional level or whatever, those signals that are all out there and you're picking it up. I think we need to actually push this out as something that we know that there are people doing it. So let's learn from them, maybe. So that's what it's all about.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. It was really special. And I hope to see you and your mom more.
Thank you so much. I hope
Mom,
to-
you will see for sure. Mom, you will see lots of.
yeah, I hope to bug her a lot more. Thank you.
Yeah, but Semu also
Thank
saying
you.
bye to you. Semu, you want to put your
Right.
video on? I'm sure you can put it on for a second to say bye to her.
Okay, I tried. It wouldn't let me.
Okay, well, I'll put it on. So at least you can see him saying bye.
Okay, there I am.
Oh.
Thank
Hi,
you.
thank you
Although
so
you-
much for having me.
Bye.
Although it's just a blurred image for her. It's all blurred. So
Here I am. I'm blurred.
Yeah.
You look so good to her.
Yes, you all
stay
look
blurred,
fabulous.
she's saying.
The blurriness, it really helps. It really helps.
Bye, thank
Bye,
you.
Pra. Bye.
Bye.
So I think what we need to do at this stage is do a little concluding kind of a round, so
Okay.
that we have, because of course this is going to be a discussion we have to take forward, and we'll have more inputs coming in. So what we do is, let's start with Semu. Semu will just kind of conclude. I mean, like I keep saying, telling people, it's not concluding because these things can't be concluded. It's just like a closing kind of a thing, so that at least from whatever we've picked up, what did you take from here, and what further discussions do we need to have? Something on that.
In closing, I'd like to say that it's a good discussion. It's something that needs to be explored more often, because things are too simplified very often in a scientific sense. You see that a lot. And I mean, that's part of the process of science and scientific discovery is isolation. But some people tend to forget that when you do that too much, you forget about the real world and the real applications. And if you isolate too much, you will forget about things that might be a little bit deeper or a little bit more complex. And there's a lot more involved in, especially something with this topic of mediation. You know, you can train on certain aspects, but you're going to lose possibly one of the most important parts of it. And I think that's kind of what we're trying to touch on today, is something on a deeper level that maybe is not defined yet. And maybe that's why the discussion hasn't been brought up so much, because it is more vague at this time. And sometimes people don't like those discussions that aren't so pinpointed. But to get anywhere, I think that you do need to bring them up and explore them, and explore their importance, and see how they relate to the situation. And I think it's a good topic. I also want to say thank you for inviting me. It's been interesting, and it's good to hear everybody else's perspective, and kind of broaden my own understanding of how other people view it, and see those different connections, and then just going forward thinking about, how to best use that in my own daily life. So thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's very nice of you to come in. And the important thing is that because of the fact that these things are not discussed, we might be losing out on such good mediators, because this aspect we just might find out this is the most important aspect of it. We don't know. I mean, not putting it in any kind of ranking, but we don't know. And because of that, we don't want the good people to be out of that conversation, and out of the, again, that discussion, whether it's a profession or not, but out of that whole world, mediation world, as I call it. So I think that discussion is also important. But the only thing, just before you come in, Lily, you're going to be the last one, because your topic, you'll get the last word. But Constantia is saying hi. But Constantia, you can drop in. You have the Zoom link. You're going to drop in. Okay, doesn't matter. Maybe now it's a little too late. But anyway, you should have dropped in, Constantia. Yeah, Lisa, please.
So, well, I'll go back to the one question you were asking, because I believe that in some capacity, we all have some capacity for having, for picking up on this and for having that. But I think that it takes self-awareness. It takes us learning how to be more self-aware, and also not just self-awareness, because you might be self-aware, but also self-accepting. Because if you're not accepting ourselves, then we start to shut it down. And so being self-aware and self-accepting, even of our faults or of our mistakes, that part of that, I think that helps to bring about being able to be in that energy that we are talking about, or it seems to me like what we're referring to as energy. And like you said, that's maybe not the right word, but or who knows, right? But I feel like, you know, to me that as people become more self-accepting, and I work with people coming out of prison, for instance, and you know, there was one gentleman, I remember it hit me so much because he was always frowning, and I felt like if I could get him to smile, you know, that would be great. And he said, I never smile because I don't feel I deserve it. And then I realized, you know, it's not, he wasn't trying to show a bad energy. He just had no feeling of that, you know, self-acceptance, and he couldn't accept himself. And so he needed that. And that's so important. And then you'll see how people change when they start to become more comfortable for that. So that's part of my belief. And I believe that that needs to be part of the, you know, I try to add that. I tell people to be, the more self-aware you are, the more intentional you can be. The more self-aware you are, the more you can shape, you know, how you want your future to be, or how you want to be around others. But anyway, that's me. Those are my perspectives. I love this topic, and I really love getting to know you guys, and meeting you. Lily, thank you so much. And thank you all for letting me bring my daughter and son-in-law for a little bit, because actually it was so fun to listen to my daughter.
But I think, okay, so now terminology is another part, another session in the conference. So terminology, do we have to give a term to this which is different from life energy? All that Lily is going to tell us. Yes, Lily, your final words are yours.
Well, I just want to say that a very basic definition of energy is work. And so I liked what Lisa said about self-awareness and acceptance. So I believe that it does start with work within ourselves. When we become more self-aware, we are more accepting, which branches out to we're more accepting of other people. So I was really excited to be part of this and to have each of you join us. Vikram, thank you for doing these. These are so fun, interesting, enlightening. And yeah, there's an energy that we can all tap into, and we just need to become aware and work on that awareness. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for suggesting the topic. I hope this is a very nice discussion, and Semu, meeting you, really nice. And you have to be part of our discussions. There is lots that you have to contribute to the whole thing. And Lisa, of course, is a regular. So she's, of course, Lily's just got hooked. Lisa's been there. So I'll see you. The whole schedule is out there, Semu. Lily will give you the link. Please drop in. The Zoom link remains the same for all the sessions. So you can drop in into any discussion, and please, there is lots that everyone can contribute, and let's further our discussion and elaborate on it. So thank you very much. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see you then. Yeah.